Real radio dumped him like a bad habit, and now he's broadcasting from his mom's basement.
Ma, the meatloaf!
Tommy Rage.
Hey rockers, Tommy Rage here. Time once again for another fantastic edition of Rage Record Review. We're excited about this week's show, something that's always I've been a big fan of, as you all probably already know, is the 90s, having grown up in that generation with 80s, 90s. I listen to classic rock too, but the 90s is really something that I was really, in my formidable years, something that I was really, really fond of. So in doing that, we've had a lot of 90s guests on, and what I've noticed as of late is that there's a lot of 90s artists that are still continuing to tour and still continuing to put out great music. And every time I see one out on Facebook or Instagram doing a live performance, I think to myself, boy, I remember when I first heard this song. I was either back in college or hanging out with my buddies, or maybe I was working at a radio station and I got to play it for the first time, and it really excited me. So one of the guys that I saw who was actually giving a performance via Instagram and Facebook was a gentleman by the name of Scott Lucas, the founding member of Local H. Now, many fans of the 90s remember the name Local H and know the band and a few of the songs that they did. So I reached out to Scott and I said, hey, Scott, we'd love to have you on the show and talk about it. And he goes, yeah, by the way, I have a new album out. And I said, that's absolutely perfect. So we've got some brand new Local H. I think you're going to like it because it takes a bit of a turn from what the stuff that we might have been used to back in the 90s, but it still stays very, very familiar to that Local H sound. And Scott and I got to talk a little bit about that and the progression of that, as well as a couple other topics that to me were really fascinating. And one of the first topics that we talked about when we sat down with Scott was Scott's overall take on forming the band in the 90s, what it was like, and and his take on it, which is a little bit different and a little bit unique because I think he was a little apprehensive about what happened to all the 90s bands looking back on it now and how the record companies really took advantage of all of the bands back then, because as we know, a lot of them aren't around anymore. Thankfully, Local H is. Scott Lucas joins us for this segment on Rage Record Review. So let's sit down and get rolling now. Here is Scott Lucas from Local H on Rage Record Review. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a show, a frontman, a guitarist, someone that I've known for quite a long time, whose music has impacted all of us, dating back for quite a while, but I don't want to make it sound dated because they've got some new material. We're excited to talk about a brand new release that came out in April, fronted by this man joining us today from Local H, the man himself, Scott Lucas. Scott, welcome to the show.
How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thank you so much for joining us today, Scott. One of the things that you've always really done is that you've always been kind of on the forefront of media and kind of reached out to fans and have been at the forefront of that. Has that, Scott, really always been your kind of personal take on life, is to really not sit back and just be so passive in dire times?
I don't know. I don't know if that has anything to do with dire times or not. You know, it's just you get on and you do stuff. You know, I can't really boil that down to any kind of overarching philosophy.
But you've always yourself, and we're going to get to it a little bit later, you yourself has always been very, very active in the music scene, and that goes way back from your guys' first two albums. I mean, you've kind of always been rather unique in that aspect.
I don't know. I mean, you know, we're certainly not the first people who put out records. You know, we're part of a tradition of people who make music, and I don't think I'm any more than a fan, basically, of music, and you know, commenting on being a fan. I'm probably not much more than that, not much more than somebody who writes about music. And instead of reviewing records, I make records. So, it's all just basically about being a fan of rock music. And what I do is no different than what anyone else does that comments on the state of rock or the state of music or anything like that.
Scott Lucas joining us today from Local H. Things really blew up big for you, and I know that many fans that listen to our show kind of remember how they all kind of came about in the 90s. Give people who may not remember that time period a little look back as to what that was like for you personally.
It was just this kind of thing where I think a lot of people thought they could make a lot of money off of people who wanted to make music, and I think a lot of people let them do that, and you'll see that a lot with people who want nothing more than just to sort of make actual things that are in their heads. You see that with the way Hollywood will sort of exploit people who want to make movies, directors or writers, or people will do awful things and let awful things be done to them just so that they can make a movie that they've dreamed of making. And so there are people that are in power that will do those awful things so they can make more money. And, they won't give those people the money that they deserve to do those things, but they will give them just a little bit so that they can, make these things that they want to make. And that's kind of what the record industry was like in the 90s, was people would give you money so you could make these records and go on tour and play these records and live this dream of yours, but they always held all the cards, and they would make all the money, and any money that they would give you would be something that you would have to pay back, and most bands will never ever be able to pay that money back, so they'll never ever see any money from the hard work that they did. Now these people will sit back on their ass while bands go out and do all the work, and they'll get all the money. So that's what it was like. So it wasn't a glorious time, and I feel like we came out okay, but most people withered and died under that system.
Did you ever think of, boy, this is kind of bullshit, I'm just going to hang it up?
Not really, because, I felt like I knew what I was getting into. And that's like anybody that thinks that they can get into something, that sounds naive, like the guy who starts doing heroin and goes, well, I won't get hooked. So, but I felt like I knew what it was about, and I always was not necessarily cynical about it, but sort of I went in with my eyes open, and so that allowed me to sort of be happy about the situation, to sort of not take too much money to where it would kill us, or be in a situation where I relied on it too much. I'd take it when it was offered, but it wasn't something that I needed to keep going. So, in a way, it made me just happy to be in that thing. Like, I was like, oh, I know this isn't going to last, so I'm going to enjoy it while it's going. And so I think I was kind of able to come out of it, not bitter in any way. It's like, oh, well, I knew that was going to suck, and it did suck, so whatever.
Rage Record Review.
I'm a karate man, all right? Karate man rules on the inside. They don't show their weaknesses. Now get off my back, all right? You boys don't know what you're doing. I can see that already. Do you know who you fucking with? Do you know who you fucking with?
Tommy Rage. The more you listen, the more stupider you get.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
Rage Record Review.
One of the fantastic things I've always really appreciated about Local H is the way Scott has always had a very unique way of naming songs. Here's Scott now from Local H. You have your big, momentous album in the 90s that everyone's a huge fan of, and thank God it didn't really drive you away. Ballad on the Floor just shoots up the charts. There's more on there that's my favorite, and we're going to get to that in a little bit later. Lifers is out now. That came out in April. And as we talk about that one, a couple different things that I want to first start off with, Scott, and I hope you don't mind me going deep on some of these questions here. But the one of the things that I've always loved about your writing style and the way you write is that you have some of the world's greatest song titles that I've ever heard, ever, for any of your songs. I mean, they are absolutely fantastic. Let's see. They Saved Reagan's Brain. Jesus Christ, did you see the size of that sperm whale? Leon in the Game of Skin. I mean, how? Why, Scott? Why? Just, I can't figure that one out. It's unique. It's unique is what it is. I mean, do you ever think, okay, maybe I should not name a song this? I mean...
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm not very good at naming songs. You know, like Bound for the Floor is a perfect example. You just called it Bound on the Floor. You know, I mean, it's a bad name for a song because no one can ever remember the name of the song.
Right,
you know?
right.
Like, I should have just called it Copacetic because that's what everyone who doesn't know what the song is called calls it anyway. So, but the reason that I don't do that is because, you know, Led Zeppelin. Like, growing up, you talk about a Led Zeppelin song, and you never knew what the name of a Led Zeppelin song was. You know, Black Dog. Why was it called Black Dog? You know, and if you missed the opening line in the evening, you'd never know why it was called In the Evening.
Right.
You know, so it's like that. I think it's because of that. You know, Battle of Evermore is called Battle of Evermore, not because of anything that's said in the song. So I think that all kind of comes from Zeppelin. Just sort of looking at the song and then going the other way. But at the same time, it also makes things difficult. But difficult is kind of what we aim for.
I was going to say, do you ever remember one that you thought, okay, fuck it, it really doesn't matter what I name it because really I just like the way it sounds and or something, maybe I can't name it this?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a little bit of the thinking of like, you know, what sort of like the thing of looking at it like the way painters name their paintings, just kind of like doing that. Well, it's like, well, you know, it's my song. I can name it whatever I want, and you know, just that kind of thing. Just like, all right, let's name this, you know, sketch number 4 in blue, and you know, who cares?
Bound for the Floor. Thank you, Scott. Got the title right on that one, didn't I? Yeah, great song. Came out in 1996. Huge, huge hit. Scott now is going to talk to us about their brand new album, Lifers, and the band's unique perspective on putting out that album. Lifers, the brand new album from Local H, the first track on there. So the name of the song is called Patrick Bateman. And so I love the video. But it's unique. I mean, I don't know how you come up with these names, but these are great Local H rock songs.
Well, I think the video is nothing but Patrick Bateman. That's Christian Bale.
Yes.
He plays a character named Patrick Bateman. Is in a movie called American Psycho, and that's why that song's called Patrick Bateman. So
gotcha.
If you look at that video, that's all you see is Patrick Bateman. Christian Bale in that video, in that movie, plays murderous yuppie scum. So that's kind of what the song's about.
Scott Lucas joining us today from Local H. His brand new album, Lifers, is available out now. You know, frankly, I've been listening to this album nonstop, particularly the single on here, Sunday Best. Now that, as far as a Local H song goes, that one's an acoustic song that's a little bit slower that fans of Local H probably understand and appreciate, but if they're not, then they might not be familiar with your playing and singing style for that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that probably goes Zeppelin once again, is, you know, we always have a song or songs on the record that do that. You know, and that's the total Zeppelin thing. It's like, let's play some rock songs and let's change it up with other songs. You know, I mean, it's everybody does it. It's not a big deal. But I would say that's probably, of that kind of song, that's probably the best thing we've ever done. So it's cool to finally sort of really nail it when it comes to an acoustic song.
And have you heard a lot of response from that?
Yeah, you know, I think people have responded to the song, and in some ways, I think we kind of knew that they would, and it's whether or not it's because of the song or it's because of the lyrics, but people seem to be getting that in a way, and in some ways, people seem to be getting that in a way right now that we didn't intend. So you know, that's good that people can get something out of it.
Yeah,
you know, I certainly got something out of it, so that's fine.
And you say that because of the way you got to compose it, or was there a reason you got something out of that?
No, just, you know, as far as trying to say something and being honest and sort of trying to get at this sort of idea of existence and trying to sort of use music to, I don't know, just not only comment on it, but connect with the idea of it. And I think people have recognized that. And so that's good, you know, that's nice. You want to feel like you've done a good job. And you know, with that song, with this record, we feel like we've done a good job. And, yeah, that's all.
Well, there's certainly other ones on there that I know that just jump out at me. Hold That Thought has the, I don't want to say typical or similar Local H sound to it, but it's very you, as well as Beyond the Valley of the Snakes is a song that's another rock song that kind of sticks right in the groove that people and fans of Local H have come to love. So I think that there's the whole gamut of the acoustic numbers as well as the rock songs on here that really fit really well together for lifers.
Yeah, you know, I certainly think that in a way you could listen to it and go, it's like, all right, that's them, whatever. But, you know, in another way, I think there's this, we're comfortable making a record like this because, you know, we're not worried about, like a song like Hold That Thought was a song that was kind of like, all right, let's do a bouncy sort of, is a song sort of influenced by 60s garage pop. And, you know, for 1 second we thought, okay, this might sound like we're reaching. Maybe we shouldn't do this. This might seem not us. And then, you know, within 5 minutes we were like, who cares? And so the fact that you say that sounds very like a familiar type of thing, that's cool to me, because that just means that our personality is enough that we can take a song style that, you know, 20 years ago we'd be like, oh, we can't touch that because, you know, that's not us. Now we can touch anything we want and it's going to pretty much sound like us. So there's a comfort in that allows you to, and I guess this is kind of a paradox, but this allows you to take chances because you're comfortable. So it's like, all right, yeah, let's do this 60s pop song. You know, it won't sound like we're trying to be sellouts because it's just us. It's going to sound like us at the end of the day. I think that's a lesson I learned years ago when we were making a record with Roy Thomas Baker. You know, like I thought that when we made this record, Pack Up the Cats, with this guy who made these Journey records and Cars records and Queen records, I thought we were going to come out the other side sounding like Queen, and I was excited about that. And then, you know, I listened to the record, I'm like, oh, it just sounds like us. And I was bummed. And now years later, I realized not years later, but very quickly after that, I realized that was cool. Like, it's like, oh, we sound like we sound. Doesn't matter who we work with, we're still going to sound like us. And in some ways, that's really depressing because, it's like this thing. It's like no matter where you go, there you are. And that kind of sucks. But in another way, it's like, oh, cool. You have a personality. You are who you are. And somehow you've arrived at it. You didn't even know it was happening, and it happened.
From Local H and their brand new album Lifers, let's do two. We're going to start off with Sunday's Best. Kind of a slower song, but Scott got to talk about it a little. It's rather unique, but God, it's still got that great sound. Then we're going to follow that up by another one of theirs, a fantastic song, Hold That Thought. So here they are now from Lifers, Local H on Rage Record Review.
This is what you get when you don't have a real job.
Well, Bull, I say Bull Ma Weevil. Pay attention, boy. I'm cutting, but you ain't bleeding. Oh, straighten this up in one cotton-picking minute. Now look here. I say that boy's just like a tattoo. Gets under your skin. Now who's responsible for this unwarranted attack on my person?
Tommy Rage.
Nice boy, but doesn't listen to a word you say. Now what's that boy up to? Better check on it, yeah. This is gonna cause more confusion than a mouse in a burlesque show.
Rage Record Review.
Local H has always had a rather unique connection to their fans, doing some things that not many bands really do. And I'm going to let Scott explain as he talks about some of the unique experiences that his fans get to share checking out a Local H show. Scott, when you say things of the nature of it's who you are, and it's always who you are, you guys take some of the biggest risks that I've known a rock band to do. And I'll just share with fans who may not know this, the things that you do. Like, for example, you guys have asked fans to create a concert set list. And so many rock stars are so set in their ways. They're gonna do their songs, the ones they know how, because they've done them 100 times. But you're like, no, you know what? We're gonna let our fans pick our set lists. You've auctioned like shit off for private shows. I mean, you've really thought outside of the box, which to me really breaks the comfort zone of a lot of recording artists who are just set in their ways. So,
well, that's just good business. I mean, it's like, hey, if you let people make the set list, maybe they'll come. If you change the set list up every night, maybe people will come to multiple shows. That's just good business. That's got nothing to do with anything other than a band going, how do we get people to come to more shows?
Right. But what I've noticed, though, Scott, is that I've noticed also as well is that you've also, and I'm gonna mention this now, is that most recently you were on Facebook. And you were sharing with people how to play some of your songs, and you were doing so, giving them kind of a lesson and tutorial. And you were very interactive with your fans, and you've been that way at concerts too. So you've always been kind of the fans band, if you don't mind me using that term, as far as connecting with your fans. And I think that really speaks a lot about you guys.
Well, I mean, we're not rock stars. So you mentioned, you used that word earlier. Like, that's the difference. We're not rock stars, and to the best of my knowledge, we never have been. So that's just in that respect, in that maybe lone respect, we have a lot more in common with punk rock bands, and that's an aspect about the band that I'm proud of and I really like, and I dig. I just, a band can be whatever you want it to be. You know, like, you know, Fugazi is a band because of their music and their records, but not really. Fugazi is more about something more than their records and their music. You know, there's an idea to what they've done that, in a lot of ways, Fugazi has nothing to do with music, and that's cool. You know, so I mean, that's cool if we have nothing to do with our music too. You know, I'm fine with that. If you look at us and go, all right, you know, they're about their live shows, or they're about the fact that, you know, the singer will crowd surf at the end of the show to the merch table. And, you know, for another 2 hours, the show isn't about the music. It's about you talking to the guy at the merch table. You know, that's fine. That's fine. Whatever people want us to be about, that's completely up to them. You know, we're here, we do what we do, and it is what it is to us. And, you know, the record is really important to me, but if it's not to you, it's fine. It's totally fine, you know?
I think fans, Scott, I think they identify with rock stars or people, musicians, I guess I'll refer to you as a musician who can identify with people and identify with a passion of music, and when they listen to a song and they hear a song and they can identify with it, so when they do get to see it live and they do get to shake your hand and have you autograph their album, I think there becomes that identification and that relation factor they get when they get to see you on Facebook giving guitar lessons for one of your songs. I think there's a connection there, especially as we first started talking about during these kind of trying and difficult times, the fact that you do that. So I think that's greatly appreciated by all local H fans and fans of great musicianship like you.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it is what it is. I can't believe I said that. You know, it's just, like, it's, all those things are just about survival, and just this is what you have to do, and this is how you have to adjust, and this is how you keep moving on, and this is how you keep making records. And it's always been about that. It's always, like, even when we were on a major label, all I cared about was selling enough records so I could make another record. And then once that was gone away, it was like, all right, how do I make another record? You know, what do I do? And, you know, jumping behind the merch table and selling your own merch was just because, hey, we can't afford a merch guy. You know, who's going to do it? And I was like, screw it. You know, what am I going to do? Sit around backstage, bored? Who cares? I'll do it. And that became something else. And that became something that, in a way, defined us. But it was never a thing that you thought out. It was just something that happened, just a way that you have to survive. And I think a lot of people in various industries are going through that right now. They're figuring out ways to survive this thing right now. And they're figuring out ways to survive when we come through this thing. And I do think we will come through this thing. And I'm hearing a lot of stuff, well, this is it. This is the new normal. I don't believe that. I think that, you know, we haven't seen the new normal. We don't know what that is yet. And I think a lot of people are figuring out ways to navigate that. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be scary, but, you know, you're going to see a lot of people doing things differently than they did before, and it's going to be something cool, something interesting. And the people that can't adapt will, you know, find other ways to screw people. You know, the people that ran the music industry in the 90s have figured out other ways to fuck you. So people who rely on that will find their ways, and the people who don't want to be screwed will find their ways. And so that's just what it is. Us selling merch was just a way of adapting and figuring out a new model. And I like the new model better than I like the old model. And I think a lot of people are going to find their way through that and settle on that too.
The more you listen, the more stupider you get.
Her mind is aglow with whirling, transient nodes of thought, careening through a cosmic vapor of invention.
Ditto.
Ditto, you provincial putz.
Tommy Rage.
We've got to protect our phony baloney job, gentlemen. We must do something about this immediately. Harumph. How did you get a harumph out of that guy?
Give the governor harumph.
You watch your ass.
Gentlemen, please rest your sphincters.
More Tommy Rage coming up. Don't say we didn't warn you.
Their hit album that came out in 1996 was called As Good as Dead. They followed that up with their third album, which was pretty darn good. It came out in 1998. This is a song off that album, the album title called Pack Up the Cats. The name of the song, All the Kids Are Right, now on Rage Record Review.
Broadcasting from his mom's basement, Tommy Rage.
106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. We're on a mission from God.
What kind of music do you usually have here?
Rage Record Review with Tommy Rage.
Now, one of the things that I know, and maybe people here in Wisconsin don't really know this, or maybe people nationwide don't know this, is that one of their very first, in fact, the very first live show was here in Wisconsin. So Scott and I got to talk about that, as well as talking about the unique perspective of putting out albums on vinyl and on cassette, and some of the cassettes that he had when he was younger. Here now again, Scott Lucas from Local H. Scott Lucas joining us from Local H. The brand new album Lifers is out. You mentioned it early on in our conversation here about having to go through the grudge and the drudgery of having to constantly tour. And you can fact check me on this, but someone once told me that one of the first Local H shows ever played was actually here in Wisconsin at the University of Wisconsin back in the 90s. Is that all right? For people here in Wisconsin that we're out of, do you remember that? Is that actually true?
Yeah, it was our first show, and it was on Earth Day, and it was at the University of Whitewater, Wisconsin, and that was true. That is true. That our very first show was in Wisconsin.
Just knowing the fact that you had one of your great starts here in Wisconsin, you've made several stops before, and we can't wait for you to bring Lifers in concert back to Wisconsin. Has me anxiously awaiting. There's a whole bunch of stuff up on your website. One of the things I was looking at, you also have Lifers available on cassette.
Yes.
Scott, tell everyone, were you a big cassette fan back in the day?
I guess I was, but I regret every record I've ever bought on cassette, because cassettes are not one of the finest. They're not one of the finest physical media that's ever been produced. They're pretty chintzy. So you could wear a cassette out pretty easily. But I was able to walk around with a boombox and listen to music anywhere I wanted to. So it had its charms.
What cassettes did you have? Do you remember any cassettes that you had maybe as a kid?
Yeah, I had Iron Maiden on cassette, Master of Puppets on cassette, Metal, I think Floyd on cassette. So all those records I've since bought again on vinyl.
See?
So that was the way for the record companies to get me to buy it twice. Very clever record companies.
Well, I'm a sucker because I've already gone out and I picked up my copy of Lifers on vinyl. I'll have you know, Scott. I picked it up on vinyl, and so I love how it sounds on vinyl. So we encourage fans to head out there as well, and can't wait for the band to hit back the road for summer tours or fall tours.
Yeah, no, we'll I will see what happens. We'll
okay.
see how it goes. And, just, I don't know, take care of each other.
That's going to close out this edition of Rage Record Review. Yours truly, Tommy Rage, for producer Don, saying thanks for everyone for tuning in. Do us a huge favor, head on out to Rage Record Review at Facebook, and please like and follow the page. And if you want to reach out to us, you can do so at Rage Record Review at Yahoo. A big shout out and thanks again to Scott Lucas from Local H. You can go out to their website at localah.com and check out their brand new album. Of course, Lifers is the name of that. It's a fantastic album if you're a Local H fan. I truly recommend it. I really do. It really harkens back to the old Local H days. And of course, Scott does some fantastic stuff out on their Facebook page for Local H fans. So you'll want to make sure to follow them. He's a great guy. I've seen him and met him a couple different times opening up for Foo Fighters shows and a lot of great stuff. So please do follow that, check that out, and again, hit us up on Facebook or, of course, through our Twitter account at Rage's Review and hit that up. So again, a big shout out to all of our friends and family. Be safe out there, be kind to everyone, and thanks again for tuning in for another edition of Rage Record Review.
Get the fuck out of my show right now! You don't come to my show and fight, you come to my show and fucking dance, you asshole!
Rage Record Review.